Today we're going to look at wrestling for God's blessings. The Jacob was left alone, and a man wrestled with him until daybreak. When he saw that he had not prevailed against him, he touched the socket of his thigh. So the socket of Jacob's thigh was dislocated while he wrestled with him. Then he said, "Let me go, for the dawn is breaking." But he said, "I will not let you go unless you bless me." So he said to him, "What is your name?" And he said, "Jacob." He said, "Your name shall no longer be Jacob, but Israel, for you have striven with God and with men and have prevailed." Genesis 32:24-28. This week we look at the blessing of Jacob. To get the whole story, we need to go back and start at chapter 25 of Genesis. Jacob was the second born of twins. His brother's name was Esau, and his name was Jacob, which means deceiver. He lives up to his name, deceiver, and steals his brother's birthright and the family blessing. Well, Esau gets upset with him, and what comes after him, and he runs from Esau, fearing for his life. And as he's running, he has a dream of a ladder coming down from heaven. At the top of the ladder, he sees God standing. God speaks the Abrahamic blessing on Jacob and tells him, when he returns to the land of his fathers, God will be his God. He runs to the land of his mother, and after much striving and blessing, he decides it's time to return home. On his way back in fear, he devises a plan to soften Esau and save his neck. But while he is by himself, he has another encounter with God. He physically wrestles with God and will not let go until God promises a blessing. Along with the blessing, God does two things. He gives him a physical reminder of his wrestling, and God changes his name from deceiver to Israel, which means may God prevail. What does this long intro have to do with us? Well, some of us are like what we learned last week. We come to faith through watching our elders and following their examples. At some point, we have our own encounter with God and receive our own blessing. But others of us are more like Jacob. We deceive ourselves and others. We try to grab the blessing before it's ours to have. We run from our mistakes and hide in a distant land. We may even endure there for a time, even having some sense of blessing. But at some point, we face the fact that we need to return to God. When Jacob ran, was he able to run from God and God's blessing? When we run from God, does God cease to bless us? God granted the blessing on Jacob because, as I believe, even in his running, Jacob still was open to God. I believe some of us deceive ourselves and go searching a far country for the God we could not find in our elders. We need to face ourselves, as Jacob had to come to who and whose he was. It is when we finally come to our senses and realize we can't continue where we are. It is the draw of home to return from where we have run. It is then we encounter God, after our wrestling, in a new and personal way. It is then that we are marked by God, and our name is changed from deceiver to may God prevail. Are you an Isaac or a Jacob? Did your faith come as a natural growth, or was it, like Jacob's, a struggle, a wrestling? Share your experience in the comments below. God bless.